trillions of dollars of assets looking to find their way into crypto. It's going to be Bitcoin, ETH, Solana.
Bitwise CIO Matt Hogan just revealed what the next 6 months look like in crypto.
Some people are looking at that and saying this is the easiest trade they've seen in a while.
So much alpha is about to be revealed.
That's the reason I think we're going to see maybe even stronger flows in H2 than we did in H1.
Smash the like button. Subscribe to Altcoin Daily. Make sure you watch the whole video. He talks Bitcoin price, altcoins Wall Street is most likely interested in first, Donald Trump, what to expect with the Ethereum ETF launch, long-term trends that will push the price of crypto sky high, and so much more. Bitwise is currently the 5th largest ETF by Bitcoins held. Matt Hogan is the Chief Investment Officer with a strong grasp on the pulse of Wall Street. First question. Give us an update on the success of these Bitcoin ETFs. What do we need to know?
First of all, two things. One, these are the most successful ETFs of all time, which is really remarkable, right? There's been thousands of ETFs launched over 30 years, and the fastest growing ones of all time are these Bitcoin ETFs. That tells you just how much pent-up demand there is from professional investors to access this asset class. What we're seeing right now is something really interesting. There's a huge wave of flows, primarily from retail investors, in January, February, and March. And then they took the foot off the pedal. We had a period where we sort of chopped sideways, but we're seeing a re-acceleration of flows in the last few weeks, and I think it's gaining momentum. What I think that is, Kate, is the people who started their due diligence, the RIAs, the institutions, the hedge funds, who started looking at this in January, they're now wrapping that up and they're starting to allocate. That's the reason I think we're going to see maybe even stronger flows in H2 than we did in H1. We're seeing the professional investors come in and drive the flows.
So what is the pitch that you give to your high net worth clients? What is the pitch you give to your institutional investors?
What is sort of the investment thesis that you're hearing from folks? It seems to be still that allocation of maybe 2 to 5% as a risk asset versus digital gold, any sort of store of value. Is that fair to say, and what are you hearing?
Well, you know, at Bitwise, we speak to financial advisors every day about crypto. We've been doing it for 7 years. And when we talk to them about BitB, our ETF, there are really two things that come into fore. The first is massive concern about rising debt, deficits, and the long-term outlook for the dollar. Investors feel that and they need a way to hedge that. And Bitcoin has been the fastest horse in that race, the best way to hedge that for the last few years. You know, since COVID, the dollar has lost 25% of its value. Bitcoin's up 700% or 800%, so it's been a great hedge. That's one major catalyst. The other one is really simple, which is people are just looking at supply and demand. The supply of Bitcoin is basically fixed, right? And actually the rate of new supply fell in half in April, and yet we have trillions of dollars of institutional capital that needs to find its way into the market. So some people are looking at and saying, this is the easiest trade they've seen in a while. Other people are thinking, how do I hedge that risk to the dollar? Either way, it adds up to significant inflows.
What about Donald Trump? Donald Trump has become a strong Bitcoin advocate, making crypto an election issue. How do crypto-centric Wall Street companies like Bitwise and BlackRock see this? How big of a deal is it that Donald Trump is supporting crypto?
Seems like former President Trump is sort of taking a stand here and trying to frame himself as the more crypto-friendly candidate. What is the feeling in the industry? Is there a lot of buzz around the presidential election and what that might mean?
There is a lot of buzz around the presidential election, but there is more buzz around the bipartisan sort of consensus that built around the FIT21 bill in the House. We had 70 plus Democrats cross the aisle. Ultimately, if you want to get something done in politics, you're going to need bipartisan consensus. And the good thing for crypto is underneath the surface, after we get away from Washington, it's owned on a bipartisan basis. The demographic that owns crypto is strongly bipartisan. And I think that's starting to be reflected in Washington. And that means, I think, we're going to see real progress in the next 12 months.
It seems to be a demographic difference too, right? As you said, not necessarily political, maybe just younger investors are more open to crypto. Is that something you found?
That's absolutely true. And we actually saw that in Congress. There was stronger alignment on demographic grounds in terms of who voted for that FIT21 bill than there were along party lines. I think the average age of a representative that voted for it was 51, and the average age against it was in the mid-60s. Again, that's a good long-term trend for crypto. I think it pushes us higher.
The Ethereum ETF is a huge deal, is it not? How do you see the ETH ETF launch going? And now that Wall Street is interested in crypto, not just Bitcoin, what altcoins is Wall Street looking at after that?
What about Ether ETFs at some point? What's your anticipation for any sort of success there, and how would it compare to some of the Bitcoin offerings that are now available? Give us a little bit of what to expect on the Ethereum side.
Sure, when you think about professional investors, what's the first thing they learn? They learn diversify your exposure. No one holds one stock or one bond.
Yeah.
They hold a portfolio of stocks, a portfolio of bonds. So we expect a lot of people who own Bitcoin ETFs like BITB to also allocate to Ethereum ETFs just on that simple diversification principle. Now, if I had to guess, I think there'll be a little bit slower acceleration of flows into Ethereum ETFs if they launch than we saw in Bitcoin, because there's more to learn. It's a more complex asset, it has different use cases, but you can be sure almost all professional investors are coming into the crypto market. They're going to want 1, 2, 5% exposure, and most of those are going to want to hold both of the largest assets, Bitcoin and ETH.
Is there room for Wall Street to get into crypto beyond that? It seems like there is some comfortability with Bitcoin, at least. I've heard some people call it boomer coin at this point. That it seems to, at least its reputation has gotten better. It seems to be sort of pegged as the safest, the biggest, the oldest.
Yeah.
But there's about $1 trillion worth of other assets that might not be as palatable. What's your take on if Wall Street will ever get comfortable with that side of it?
I think they'll get comfortable with it. I think you'll see them look beyond Bitcoin and ETH toward things like Solana as they start to understand some of the non-financial applications of open blockchains. And I think that will resonate. The other place I think we're going to see huge investment, including from the largest financial institutions in the world, is in stablecoins. That's a $150 billion market. I think that will be a multiple trillion-dollar market in a few years, with big names like JP Morgan and Bank of New York and others trying to find a foothold in that space. So again, it's the same story. Trillions of dollars of assets looking to find their way into crypto. It's going to be Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, stablecoins, and other applications we're not even thinking about today.
The big question, what could go wrong? What keeps you up at night? What is the #1 problem crypto still has to face?
What are you hearing in terms of some of the reservations that still might exist when it comes to crypto, whether it's the reputational risk, the risk of safety, not enough regulation? What is sort of the top concern you hear from more institutional investors?
Yeah, I actually think it's just the passage of time, believe it or not. I think a lot of institutional firms started their due diligence in January and February after the Bitcoin ETFs were launched, and that process takes 6 to 12 months, not for crypto, for any new asset. So I think the biggest one is the passage of time. But I will say that Wall Street has its eyes on DC. There was a real change in sentiment when we saw sort of bipartisan progress in Congress around comprehensive crypto regulation. I think once that comes into the fore, you're going to see this trickle of institutional assets turn into a flood.
Very exciting times. Most people are ignoring Bitcoin right now, particularly as it just ranges and ranges. There are so many reasons to be bullish on Bitcoin and the entire cryptocurrency market. We clue you in to these green flags on an almost daily basis. Make sure you get your tickets to Bitcoin Nashville in July. Use code Altcoin Daily for 10% off. We'll be speaking there, and we'll be releasing the full interview with Charles Hoskinson within the next several days, so look forward to that. And make sure you check back on any of our videos from the past 6 months, the top altcoin ones, any of them. All of these videos are still very much relevant. My name is Aaron. This is Altcoin Daily. See you tomorrow.